Hey, Stephen in here doing the junkyard crawl with a twist. This is the big Olds barn. Get it? It's an old barn, but it's full of Oldsmobiles. We're in Palmer, Massachusetts, and we'll take a break from Burnston Auto Wrecking for a couple of days to explore the cool Oldsmobile products in that barn. Everyone loves a barn find. Let's dig in. Oldsmobile was founded in, I think, 1893, began building cars in 1897, and while it's gone now, it was one of America's first car makers, quite frankly, in fact, predating Henry Ford's empire by a bunch of years. Now, inside this barn, which was owned by a fellow named Warren D., right here in Palmer, Mass. His primary thing was Oldsmobiles, and it shows up right here. This is an Oldsmobile V8, sitting nose up, water pump, flywheel down here. This one is the basic Rochester 2CG carburetor. It's a two-barrel carburetor. That's the choke plate right there. And it's a second generation Olds. We know that 1949, the first Olds V8, the Rocket 303, came out, but it went through a few upgrades and evolutions. This we'd call a second gen, often seen as a 394. You can see the valve covers here have sort of a finned look. This is stamped steel, but Olds was trying to be sporty. It kind of looks like the Corvette's fin valve cover, but again, that's a stamped steel piece with these ribs sort of pressed in. That circle right there, I'm going to bet probably could be knocked out for perhaps truck-based or some industrial use for a breather or something, and it's also ornamental, looks pretty cool. And again, this is a two-barrel, probably a 392 family car type engine. Now next to it, this is not an Oldsmobile, but it's also GM. This is a Chevy big block. Clearly we can see the big canted valve rocker cover right there. But when we see this extension from the water pump to the intake, we know it's a truck engine. The tall deck, which is to say it's probably a 427, maybe a 366, and these are truck engines with 5 piston rings. It's a good engine, 4-barrel carburetor for sure. We see right here the emission control stuff from General Motors, probably something from the mid-1970s, probably a C60, 5-ton truck would have had this for its heart. Nice big deep pans on these things, by the way. Some of these will fit Chevelles and other cars, but I think it's a 6-quart pan, extra capacity right there. But again, these tall deck big blocks aren't really ideal for high performance use in a general setting because again, they have 5 piston rings to contain oil and combustion gases and low compression, like maybe 9-to-1, because they're truck engines. Speaking of truck engines, here's another V8 in the Warren D stash, and I will say he's an equal opportunity collector. This is a Ford FE, Ford Edsel, first seen in 1958. This one here, again, a two-barrel. You can see the Holley 2300 family two-barrel with a round plate for the same air cleaner base as a 4-barrel, but you're not fooling it. It's a 2-barrel. Again, it's an economy engine. And we know it's a truck engine because of this massive manual transmission right here, big cast iron monster. And again, NP, New Process, which is the New Process gear division. Not, I think maybe owned by General Motors, not sure. But anyway, this is 4-wheel drive type stuff right here, I believe. No, okay, yeah, this is, yeah, okay. With that said, this probably was in a 4-wheel drive truck. The transfer case would be somewhere else, but again, a big truck. That is not a Ford top loader like in a 428 Mustang, whole different critter. But again, the Ford FE engine family on display right here. Here is an oil pump right here, undoubtedly to run a snow plow. We can see right there, this thing would have been turned by a belt, would have provided the pressurized lube to run the piston for the snow plow. Let's dig in a little more here. And again, this is one man's collection of stuff. Here's an oil pan right here, and this is an Oldsmobile oil pan. We can tell because of the shapes of the front and the back, where the seal would be sort of a semicircle, and the bottom of the pan clearly Oldsmobile stuff. This might be a Toronado pan, probably a Toronado pan because of that right there, which is where the drive shaft would go for the front wheel drive stuff. Toronado pans are more desirable because they have deeper sumps, so you can put this under your 455 and your Cutlass and have, I think, about 6 quarts of oil. Again, kind of like the Chevy big block truck pan, more capacity, and again, more oil means cooler oil to spread around those calories as you go down the road. Another Oldsmobile engine right here. It's nice how it's picture framed for us right here. Look through the frame. There's that beautiful Oldsmobile blue engine. Let's pull that frame out of the way. and explore a little bit more. Now this is going to be, I guess we call it a third generation Olds. These came along in 1964 as the 330, and in 65 as the 400 and the 425. We can see that because of the sculpted scalloped side here. And again, these big 455, 400, even 350 and 330 cubic inch motors, and even 403, this family went right into the late 1970s, early 80s even. The 307s and 260s were kind of based on the same essential architecture. But again, you can always tell right here, the final generation Olds V8, the filler tube here for the oil, that doohickey right there. And if you ever happen to see like a Pontiac Trans Am with the 403 or the 301, you will see this. That means it's an Oldsmobile powered Trans Am. Another engine block right here. This one appears to be a previous generation. This is going to be again 392, 370 style Oldsmobile mid 50s right here. This one here, flat top pistons, heavy cast iron engine block on this one here. And just interesting stuff. Just the stuff you find, you know. Things don't talk. Luckily, whoever had this air cleaner wrote that it's from a 48 Cadillac. Now this would have been atop a Cadillac V8 flathead, and this would have sat on top of the carburetor, come off to the side. The point of this being that the carburetor here, this thing goes off to the side instead of straight up, allows a lower hood line for the stylists of that 1948 Cadillac. Keep in mind, 1948 was the final year before Cadillac got into the modern overhead valve V8 era of 1949 with its 331. You got to remember too, 49 was the year that GM introduced overhead valve V8 motors in Oldsmobile 303, Cadillac 331, but the year before that, this would have been on top of a 317, I think, cubic inch, something like that, Cadillac flathead V8. And there it sits right there. Let's dig in a little bit further here, and okay, a gas tank from some probably Chevelle or a Cutlass, something with the gas filler in the middle under the gas or the license plate flap, sort of central located piece right there. And then here, again with the multi make collection. This is a Ford modern EFI system right here from a truck, probably a 5.0 or a 5.8 pushrod engine. You can see the barrel ram effect. The throttle body would live right here. It's divided, but again, these tubes right here, that's ram tuning in effect right there. If these things were vertical, well, it'd be the same thing as a Hilborn fuel injection unit, but here's the bottom piece right here. You can see that these runners feed into these holes, which then segregate the mixture into both right and left cylinder banks. And here's the underside of a similar one. This one here, out of a passenger car, you can see it's similar, but it's lower. It kind of has a lower profile to, again, fit under a car hood, but same basic idea. The runners are curled over, call it a barrel ram or a semi-barrel. Ford stuff right here. And again, this one has a single throttle plate, if you will, on the throttle body, whereas the truck one has twins. So the truck needed to have more airflow for the 351. Probably that thing came off of. So not Oldsmobile stuff here, but let's dig a little deeper as we make our way into this wonderful, the Olds Red Barn. Coming down here, bucket seats, probably from a 1970s application. Again, this type of velour stuff right here became popular in the 70s. You don't see this quite so much in the 60s, or certainly not in the 50s. And again, this headrest right here tells us it's a 1969 or up application. Headrests were made standard and mandatory in 1969 to prevent neck injuries and rear impacts. Now, one thing about old barns, you know, sometimes you got to watch your noggin. You don't want to be walking under stuff like that, so we'll stay right here. But getting back to the Oldsmobile, here's the valve covers right here from a whole bunch of final generation Oldsmobiles. These blue ones here, you know, a lot of people say that Olds engines are gold. Not so fast. In the mid-60s, they transitioned to blue from gold. In fact, I believe this here is a 1973 only, I think. It says Oldsmobile pressed into the valve cover, something you don't see on the other ones. Kind of cool. The devil is in the details. These red ones here are probably from a 65, 6, maybe 7, 425 engine. And we can see that they're very similar. But the Oldsmobile V8 was interesting because the valve covers were very narrow and compact to suit the side-by-side valve placement under the cylinder head. So again, the forest of Olds valve covers. And if you're an Olds restorer, you'll want to get the right covers on your engine or on your vehicle. But don't make the mistake of getting a Ford valve cover. That's not the same. We can clearly see the Ford small block Windsor is a smaller creature than the Olds big block. Well, that's it for this first installment of the Olds Red Barn. We'll be back tomorrow with more Oldsmobile discoveries here in wonderful Palmer, Massachusetts.